Hello and welcome back to ClearCast, the real estate fintech podcast. This is episode 12. I am Jeff Allen, as always, joined by my friend Kenon Chen. Kenon, how are you?
I'm doing good. Hi, Jeff.
Wow, you sound really happy. That's
All
either
right.
very fake or something really cool happened.
No, I'm doing good. We'll see how long it lasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's give it a
Okay.
shot.
Sweet.
Well, we've got an action-packed episode today. Our special guest at the end of the episode is Brian Zitin, who's the CEO and founder of Reggora. We're going to be talking about all sorts of cool stuff with appraisals. We've also got a Tales from the Street segment, a returning Tales from the Street guest, Lazerbeak. I know you're excited about that, Kenon.
I am very excited. It's going to be a good time.
We'll have a joke of the pod.
That's also nice.
And before that, let's talk a little bit about appraisal stuff. This is going to be kind of an appraisal-centric episode. So for most of our listeners, you can now just turn this off and delete it. But for the
thanks for joining. Appreciate you. Have a good day.
But for those of you like us who live and breathe valuation and collateral, this will be a fun episode. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about a topic we touched on briefly in the last episode, which is the FHFA appraisal modernization RFI. And this is a really important and cool inflection point in our industry, in that the FHFA is looking for public opinion and feedback on potential changes to the appraisal process and appraisal policies. And so a lot of really good discussion. There's written responses that are due back by February 26th, but yesterday, February 11th, there was a really cool live session where the FHFA invited folks to come and speak, present their feelings and data and opinions on appraisal modernization and other topics. And Kenon, you were one of the speakers.
That was pretty fun, addressing the government. I actually had written remarks prepared.
Yeah.
Usually I just kind of wing it, so I was actually prepared. No, it was actually really good hearing the different viewpoints from technology companies to appraisers to trade organizations, of appraisal organizations, lenders, and there of course there was some contrary viewpoints on it, but
there was you're putting it delicately.
There are some people that were not as thrilled as we are about some of the changes, especially when it comes to the solutions to what we think are the problems, which is things like capacity. How long do appraisals take to get completed, and how does that change when there's higher volume, like last year being a record year of loan volume? We saw the turn times for appraisals rapidly increase. I think even in a recent article this week, the CEO of United Wholesale Mortgage said that their biggest risk to loan turn times or loan closing is waiting for the appraisal. So
Yep.
we know it's an issue out there, and there seemed to be a lot of, at least, agreement, or no one was really refuting the fact that there's an issue with supply and demand, how many appraisers that are actually available versus loan demand. But how that should be solved is where a lot of the fireworks started happening. And but I think everyone's perspective is super valuable, hearing from appraisers that are on the ground, out there in the field, and what they see, especially the nuance of different situations and things that they're working through, but also what consumers, really need, so that they're not in a bad situation, trying to um, get a home, right? No one wants
Yeah.
a mortgage; they want a home. So yeah, super interesting. And then also the discussion around bias. One of the things the FHFA asks in the RFI is there racial bias? Is there racial discrimination, within the process? And there's some pretty compelling speakers yesterday on, helping everyone understand the different types of bias that there might be, systemic, implicit, explicit, or
Yeah.
unconscious bias, those sort of things. And to hear the whole industry speaking about it like it's a serious issue that needs to be looked at, that deserves attention, that deserves
Hmm.
analysis and careful thought, um, and the willingness to change as things get discovered. I that I was pretty blown away, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The I think the expectation that some folks have had about how will the kind of appraisal community respond to these kind of perceptions that the appraisal process may be, you know, potentially racially biased in some way. I think a lot of people anticipated that the appraisal community would be reflexively defensive towards that and
Mm.
essentially say, "No way, that never happens." And the
Mhm.
appraisal community, I think, is rightfully at least a little defensive in pointing to the fact that USPAP specifically prevents them from doing things like that, and they've kind of taken that code. But they've also, to your point, been really open to the dialogue around,
Mhm.
hey, if it's unknown, if it's systemic, let's explore what we can do about that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. There's a lot of consensus on that.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes one feel hopeful, not just for the appraisal profession, but the fact that, on a wide scale, I think most people are willing to say, hey, if there's a problem here, I'm willing to change. I'm willing to think about it. I'm willing to see how I can make sure that those around me are treated fairly and equally. Like, that's a good thing for the human race, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of really good discussion happening in the appraisal space right now, which has typically been a fairly quiet beat, but it's picked up, and we're really excited to have Brian Zitin on later, because he was one of the speakers as well, during the RFI listening session, and I would say that Brian and us at Clear Capital, we're all pretty well aligned on what the future looks like, and the value we can bring, to the bias conversation and to the modernization conversation. Before we get into that, though,
Hmm.
there is a joke of the pod that I could tell if you'd let me.
I'm not going to stop you.
Thank you. Once again, this is an original joke.
Oh.
So there's this guy, and he is the VP of, like, let's say mortgage operations at some big bank, right? You know what I mean? Like mortgagee stuff. Like
Sure.
he moves, like he's not like a loan officer, but he's like help his departments like move the funds around and process the payments, stuff that lenders like have to do, whatever that is.
Yeah.
You with me
Money
so far?
guy. Yeah.
His money guy,
Yeah.
operations Z,
Yeah.
accounting T stuff. Yeah, you're with
Sure. Yeah.
me. And this VP of ops guy, he's down in his cubicle. He's checking his email. He's doing white collar stuff.
Hmm.
And he's got a TV on in the background. And the news comes across on the TV that there's actually a new richest person in the world just announced. And get this, super weird. The new richest person in the world is the famous musician Sheryl Crow.
Okay.
I mean, that's weird, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's super weird. Sheryl Crow has just been named the world's most richest person, and the VP of Ops guy is like, huh?
Is
Like
that
that.
is that happening now, or is this joke in 1996?
This joke is timeless. There's no beginning and no end. Uh, So he's like, that's weird. Let's say it's now, okay? Because I thought it was a two-way race between Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. Like, when in God's name did Sheryl Crow get so rich? Like, did a bunch of people download that Kid Rock song she did? Like, what happened here? So he keeps watching
Kid Rock song.
Look it up. Look up Sheryl Crow and Kid Rock.
Okay.
So the newscasters are reporting that the source of Sheryl Crow's massive wealth increase is actually a complete mystery. Like, out of nowhere, she has made hundreds of billions of dollars in just the last few months. Isn't that weird?
Huh? Did she buy GameStop stock?
Yes, that's the punchline. So the mortgage VP worker guy, he's like, okay, well, that's weird, but I got to get back to work. So he gets back to work. Just then, racing down the hallway comes his boss. His boss is running at full speed towards him and yelling, "What in the Sam heck is going on down here? We're getting reports from all over the country that our customers' property tax payments aren't being distributed to their local city governments. It's everywhere. People are freaking out. What did you do? This is your job, operations guy, to figure out where these funds go." And so the VP of operations guy stops and says, "That's crazy. We got to get to the source of this." "I know. Let's go down and see my payments processor, and we'll figure out what in the Sam heck is going on here." Okay. So they go to the VP of operations and the boss. They run as fast as they can across the big mortgage office building. They find the payments processor and like, "Dude, what in the Sam heck is going on down here? Why aren't our property tax payments getting to the local governments?" And the processor stops and goes, "Hey, I don't understand the problem. You told me to send all the payments to escrow."
Yes.
You get it?
I do get it. at gmail.com.
Yeah.
Yes.
The mortgage processor guy was like, "Oh, you wanted me to send these to Sheryl Crow." And so he's just been like Venmoing her, and like all the property tax payments of the whole bank have been sent to Sheryl Crow. And so she's the richest person in the world.
Gosh. Fun fact.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. Fun fact.
Yeah.
The song "Every Day is a Winding Road."
Yes.
Good song, right?
Yeah.
I have played the guitar that was recorded on that song because I was hanging out with the producer of that album.
What?
And had the guitar that they recorded most of that album with there. I got to play it.
Whoa, man, Kenon, you're way cooler than me.
Shout out to Jeff Trott.
Yeah, Jeff Trott. Thanks for hooking my guy Kenon up with the "Every Day is a Winding Road" guitar.
There you go.
That's super cool. Also, little known fact, she does have a song with Sheryl Crow. It's called "Picture," and it was released in 2001 on the Kid Rock LP "Cocky."
Oh, I have no idea. I want to hear it.
I put your picture away. I wonder where you've been.
Okay, we are joined now by a special guest. We're going to do another segment of Tales from the Street. And this is a very special segment of Tales from the Street because we are being joined by the first ever repeat guest from Tales of the Street, the one and only Lazerbeak. How you doing?
Oh, yeah. It is an absolute honor to be on my all-time favorite podcast.
As a reminder,
complete honesty.
I don't believe you. But so as a reminder, his birth name is Aaron Mader, but everybody calls him Lazerbeak or Beak for short. He's a founding member of the Doomtree Hip Hop Collective, CEO and general manager of Doomtree Records, and has worked with a variety of different musical artists, including Lizzo. Yes, that Lizzo. Lazerbeak, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Truly don't own another mug by a different podcast. This is it. And I clearly live at your guys' offices too, if you're watching this on Zoom. And I also live with another little pal of mine over here. Comes with me everywhere.
So for the folks listening on audio, he is currently in a room with Bernie Sanders. It's incredible. I don't know how we pulled it off, but we pulled it off.
I don't know. It's crazy.
No one has ever
Obviously,
thought
the
of doing something
production
like that.
value. I know.
Really
You
original.
guys have really clearly the podcast has been going great. You guys are really kind of raking in the accolades to be able to afford podcast studios and to be on the radar of one Bernie Sanders as well. It's impressive.
We've come a long way, baby.
We've been told things like you guys obviously don't know how to do a podcast and it's boring. So we've got great fan feedback as well.
Yeah, well, that's what you want.
That's what you want. So welcome back. We're having you back on because you recently had another mortgage experience buying an investment property in northern Wisconsin. And we wanted to have you on to talk about that because we had a great guest on our last episode, Neil Dingra, who is actually a mortgage officer in Reno. And he does these really unique things to try and drive people to his business and kind of compete with the big dogs, right? Like people who just want to use like a direct portal online and get their mortgage that way.
Yeah.
He's trying to compete and create this human experience. And so it got us thinking, I knew that you had used the same loan officer for all three of your most recent loans, and you are like a raving fan of this person. Wow.
I love it.
It's incredible. And so we thought, hey, people in the mortgage industry are trying to figure out like, how do we make raving fans? And we knew that you are a raving fan. So let's connect the dots here. So
Smart.
Hey, thank you so much. How did your loan officer and the experience you had with her turn you into a raving fan? What happened?
Well, let me take it all the way back to the very beginning. A good friend of mine texted me and said out of nowhere, hey, I just refied my house and you got to do it, and you got to do it through this girl, Vanessa Frisch. She's the best. And so he's like, and I'll link you. I'll put you on a text message with her. And I was like, a text message with a loan officer? It sounds crazy. So one, that already got me. I was like, wow, this is a cool person I want to get to know. I have a cool friend who's like really vouching for her and looking out for my best interests. So there's the intro, right? And then she just like responds right away via text. Like a cool person would just like it was no problem. Like she texts all the time. And that also threw me off a little bit. We hopped on a call and I was kind of just like struck by her. She was able to lay things out in very good, like simplified, normal person terminology, and was also just chill and cool. And I know that's really hard to quantify, but like not something I generally would associate with like a loan officer or a refi person or someone who works for a bank or whatever. And I don't know, just felt a rapport. And then as we got into it, everything was made extremely easy for me, which I'm a big fan of. So, it was like, hey, we have a portal. This is Vanessa Frisch at Guaranteed Rate, folks. Okay. And if you do go to her, I'm going to need you to let her know that Aaron Mader sent you, because we're going to see if there's any kickbacks involved here. I did see a Guaranteed Rate commercial during the Super Bowl, so I have a feeling they might be a little bit flush with cash right now.
They can sprinkle you off a little.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hitting the podcast circuit. You got to start with the big dogs and then you trickle down. I just really, I felt a human connection, which I think is like lacking, if I'm being honest, in a lot of the fields of your guys' industry. And that felt good. So I felt an immediate sense of like, this person is like caring for me and is going to like hold my hand and walk me through this. And then, yes, it was very streamlined. And in COVID times, obviously there's not like, hey, let's come down to the office and blah, blah, blah. It was pretty like, okay, you have internet? Great. Send me these forms. I got a ongoing like email anytime something was needed or was completed. There's like a task list. And then I don't know, then it was done. I mean, I talked about this on the last episode we did together, guys. But of how like beautiful it is to just have someone come to your house and be like, sign here, and it's done. With this investment property, my family's always wanted a cabin, and so we decided to go in with my sister and her family with the idea that we would like Airbnb it out enough to cover the mortgage and then get a free family cabin out of the deal. That's theoretically the idea. And there were more hurdles, you know, it was in a different state. There were more things they needed. There was also a total of 4 people on the loan. They couldn't even find the address because it's in the middle of the woods of western Wisconsin. But throughout the whole thing, she also has a cabin. And so she was able to like impart some wisdom on, you know, she was able to recommend like a real estate lawyer to help draw up the Airbnb negotiations. And she was really upfront about making sure that the 4 of us, since we were family, were going in on it and covering our bases and having an agreement between us. Cause she was like the first person that mentioned like, well, what if one of you guys gets divorced? Then what? Like just like the basic stuff that she didn't have to do to get our money or to get our business. And I really think that went a long way with the trust factor. And I literally want to like drink a beer with her. She came. So for the signing, she actually was like, you know what, I'm going to mask up and come down, because we actually had to be in person for that, for the cabin. Yeah. Just because she was like, I just feel like I've gotten to know you guys now so well. I just want to like drop off a gift. And you know what that gift was? I think you know, Jeff.
I know, but I've tell them about the cups.
All right. It was cups. It was a lot of cups with her name on it. And it was great. And those cups have come in real handy at the cabin. You know, we forgot to bring coffee mugs, and then we were like, oh, we have 2 like insulated coffee mug cups that's saving us a fresh of guaranteed rate on them.
Nice.
Think of all the cups.
You know,
think of all the cups you didn't have to buy.
Yeah. And you know what? One of those cups was a boat cup. It's one of those plastic cups that can keep cold or hot things in it, but that's not like just a coffee mug cup. And she specifically was like, these are great for the pontoon rides when you make your boat cocktails. Another reason why I feel very safe in her hands. She drinks cocktails on boats.
And she
I don't know, what else could I say about her?
She understood obviously, you know, your interests and you know, what would make you feel happy, you know. So she got to know you a little bit. Yeah. So
she did.
So what
really
was
did.
different? I'm curious, what was different about the investment property process? I mean, obviously you had other people involved, you know, that you're doing this with and all of that, but was the actual kind of, you know, documents and all those step-by-step things, was that similar to the refi that you did, or is pretty different?
It was actually, it was the same system, which I also appreciated, right? So it's like, okay, I'm familiar having done the 2 refinancing things with them before. I was familiar with the online system and the portal, and they actually already had all of me and my wife's information for the most part that they needed. I think we had to get them one more financial document, but it was all on file. So I didn't even have to do anything for the most part. You know, my sister obviously had to populate that. The checklist was the same, so we could see in real time what they needed. So there was no like, oh, I think I got you that or whatever. It was just like kind of automated. And then it was really just more about, because it was a new property, like obviously having to set up the inspection and things like that. But man, it was really easy.
So you
again,
like the
maybe too
you
easy.
you like the tech and the human touch. You kind of want your cake and eat it too. That's what I'm hearing.
Without question. I think that sums me up in a nutshell. Yeah, I want to like, I want to know when I have a specific question, or if I'm feeling apprehensive or unsure, that I can immediately talk to someone that I have already talked to. And I also don't want to spend extra time doing anything because time is money, baby. And none of us have enough of it. So it's like, yeah. And so this like made it was a perfect balance, right? So like when it's go time, I want to just get the work done. And so that's the portal. That's like, okay, here's my task. This isn't going to be fun. Let's just knock it out. And then when it's like, wait, hey, have you ever actually like rented out your cabin to anybody? Do you have any idea how to drop a thing? And she's like, yeah, actually, I know this guy and I'm going to intro you to him right now. And he's going to get you sorted. Like there was that too. So I really think that's so helpful if it's possible to have both.
Yeah.
Which clearly Vanessa Frisch at Guaranteed Rate does.
And so now you are a vacation investment property owner. I mean, I know it's early, you're only a couple months in here, but how's it been going so far? What are the ups and downs to the Airbnb life?
It's a lot of downs, Jeff. It's a lot of downs right now. I got the you want the honest truth. Well, today, we'll just use today as an example. We're just kind of having the like everything's going wrong at once thing. We just started renting it out to people. And yesterday the first renters that we didn't actually know came. Before it's been like my sister's friends, or we've been able to kind of fill it in. And we've been working on it since the beginning of the year. So, we knew there were things that we needed to do, and we've been checking those off the list. And then we got a call this morning that like the whole place smells like sewage and the renters are leaving because the handyman guy that we found in Birchwood hooked up the washer and dryer wrong or whatever. And so like the sewage smell is coming up from the thing. And so we got to refund these people their whole like 4-day stay. So that part's not going great.
Ooh.
But within a month, we're going to iron out all the kinks. And I was not like naive to think that this wasn't going to be like, I knew this was going to be hard. So those calls are unfortunate, and we're doing everything we can to just like make it up to whoever. But I'm getting a taste of like what it really is. And I don't think I was kidding myself. I knew there'd be all sorts of, and specifically Jeff and his wonderful wife, Allison, let us know, as also cabin owners in Western Wisconsin, that like stuff breaks, things go wrong. So it's not deterring me, but it's not like a cakewalk. I don't foresee this becoming like my new line of work, just like buying a billion Airbnbs and doing it. It's like, it's kind of annoying. There's a text thread that is just like never ending with me and my sister and my wife about stuff that needs to get done.
I thought you were going to say, Jeff. I thought you were going to say Jeff's the guy that hooked up the washer dryer wrong for you.
Oh man, I mean, I can't imagine the amount of sewage that would be spewing up from our basement if Jeff had attempted to hook up.
I would find a new vein of sewage somehow to get it stronger.
Yeah,
stronger sewage.
Yeah, it would have been obliterated. It would just be, there would not be a cabin any longer, just melted by sewage. So yeah, but so I don't think it's going great, but I'm still happy that we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got the right attitude. You're working out the kinks. You're gonna learn from these mistakes, and it certainly wasn't Vanessa Frisch from Guaranteed Rate's fault.
God, no. She's the last person I blame for this.
Well, as always in our long history together of doing shows, that was insightful, and we really appreciate the time and sharing your stories with us. And we can't wait till you buy your next property so we can have you on again.
I just got to say, it's a true honor, guys. As a lifelong fan of the podcast, it is almost daunting to think of what I would actually do if I'd ever get the opportunity to be on my favorite podcast. What would I say? How would I handle it? How would I keep my cool? And to now have been on twice and survived, to live the tale, and also to know that there's a potential for a third invite is eternally gratifying for me. And so you've done a lot of good here.
Yeah.
Well,
keep buying those houses.
Keep buying those houses and find a different sewer hookup guy next time.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Words
I'll keep
to
you guys
live by.
posted. Yeah, I'll get maybe like a twice a month update on kind of how the cabin's going for you guys.
Yeah.
How often are you doing the podcast again? Is it twice a month?
We could increase it to twice a month just to get the cabin update for sure.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay, we are joined now by Brian Zitin. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep. Perfect.
All right. Nailed it. And Brian is one of the founders of Reggora, which is a real estate appraisal platform. And a really interesting story. During his senior year at Boston University, Brian, along with his friend Will Denslow, skipped class to work on a brokerage firm that used algorithms to source deals, selling $5 million in real estate total. Hyped by that success and having identified inefficiencies in the home buying process, they founded Reggora to automate the real estate appraisal process. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited.
So let's dig into this origin story. What was the flashbulb moment for you that made you realize you wanted to get into real estate appraisal technology? That's not like a common thing for a senior in college to get excited about.
Yeah, so we were doing the brokerage thing that, as you mentioned, and we sold a bunch of properties, but like the brokerage business model is super tough, as I'm sure you guys know. And the way that we were doing it with these algorithms was basically we had the contact info of like every single property owner in Massachusetts. So we targeted 2 to 10 unit multifamily property owners because we wanted to sell kind of like, investment deals to investors versus consumers sort of thing. And so we were just sending out thousands of emails to everyone in Massachusetts who owned a 2 to 10 unit building. Hey, do you want to sell your property? Hey, you want to sell your property? Eventually you run out of people to email. So it wasn't the most scalable business model. It wasn't like we were like fostering deep relationships or like building this expertise. We were really like 22-year-olds, no facial hair, looked like absolutely noobs. You know what I mean? Like the only reason that we were selling these buildings is because like we happened to find the guy that was moving to Florida or that sort of thing. And so it just wasn't like scalable, and we didn't want to like just start up a regular brokerage. And so we were looking for different problems. And then as we were selling one of these buildings, in walks an appraiser, using the clipboard sort of thing, really manual. They were asking me for comps. Even though I was, representing the seller sort of thing. So we're like, okay, let's dig into that. And then I'm sure, as you two know, appraisers love to talk about their problems. And so it was really easy to kind of learn about all the challenges that were going on for them. And so really I started just driving out to like appraisers' homes and shadowing them, watching them use a la mode, ACI, things like that to create the forms. So when we first started, we actually started with form software. We were like, we'll build a better form software because, they had to go from MLS data and assessor data manually type back in. We wanted to build something that, had all of that kind of in the cloud and autofill. And then, as we were doing that, it's hard to get an appraiser who's been doing the same thing for 20, 30 years to change. Right. And so, and also when we zoomed back and started learning more about appraisal, we kind of learned about the larger problem of turn times and the logistics and all that, not just the creation of the report. So it wasn't like a eureka thing. We just kind of stumbled into it, kept learning more and more about it, and then zoom forward 3 years. I know a decent amount about appraisals at this point. So yeah, we just kind of right time, right place sort of thing.
Wow. So in that first year, give us kind of a sense of like something where you're like, that can't be true. Like that just can't be, what's the norm here? And there's gotta be a better way than that.
There's a lot of those, to be honest. I mean, the whole, even the just reconciliation process of what an appraiser has to do in terms of data and things, right? This assessor database includes the basement square footage. That one doesn't. So now they got to call the broker, and like just the sheer kind of fragmentation and legacy technology throughout the entire process was mind-boggling. And we actually ended up shadowing an AMC who used one of the legacy systems out there today. And these guys were processing thousands of orders through it. Like, wow, I cannot believe that this is how it works and how it looks and sort of thing. So I think that's one of our advantages of kind of like not being directly from the industry and having a super is kind of realizing where the areas of improvement can be, and just visualizing it in a little bit of a different way. So there's a bunch of those things, not just an appraisal, all over mortgage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How did you? Oh, I'm just curious, like how you went from that though, from thinking about the appraiser to then turning your attention to lenders and
yeah.
Where did that pivot happen?
Well, we were talking to them about all their problems, right? So it wasn't just about creating the form. It was, okay, what else are your problems? Oh, we don't like, working with these people because it's difficult to interact with them through this way. Or I hate how the lender is constantly broadcasting orders in this particular way. And so then we started shifting focus and started interviewing lenders as well. And they had similar problems in terms of, their overall management of the appraisal. So it was literally just okay, you said they have a problem, let's go talk to them. So I talked to probably like close to 100 appraisers, bunch of different people in the banking industry, AMC folks, and then it just slowly kind of absorbed it over time. So it was, like there's not, when I give the, VC pitch, it's like one sexy master plan, right? But it was an aggregation of, new insights over time, and it kind of started to form a picture.
So how many years have you guys been at it at this point now?
So we graduated in May of 2017. So it's been, we started, we were doing the brokerage since September of 2016. And then we really started doing appraisal kind of summer after we graduated. So it's been, like 3.5 years, a little over 3 years.
Awesome. So still pretty, fresh by appraisal industry standards. And I mean that in a good way. You guys are still like, on the upward growth trajectory. And on that subject, you guys recently secured some additional funding for your company's growth. Congratulations. That's awesome. So that obviously opens up some big doors for you. Tell us more about what the next few years holds for you. What do you have planned?
Yeah. So to your point, we just raised $30 million. We raised about $45 million total. And, in mortgage tech, it just requires lots of investment, right? It's like big enterprise technology. There's tons of complex workflows, different integrations all over the place, right? So it just takes a little while to build that stuff out. And we, over the last 2 years, we've really kind of honed in on what we think is like a really solid technology platform that's, introducing new things in the industry. Now with this $30 million, now we're going to get to start doing a lot of the cool stuff. We made appraisal 1.0 better. Now it's time to bring it to appraisal 2.0. So some of the things that, Kenon and I were talking about in the RFI hearing the other day in terms of some of these newer technologies, the North Star for us is to really reduce turn time. So we say we want to bring 2-day appraisals to the industry. And so, anything that we're, to get us to that point is what we want to focus on.
Do you think, let's talk about that. Yesterday, it seems like the FHFA RFI, has really come out of that problem, turn times. And I think you mentioned yesterday that turn times have been growing. They've been getting longer during 2020, and so they're going the wrong direction right now, right? So what is it that gets us to a 2-day turn time? How, do you think it's just capacity, or are there other major, roadblocks to get there?
I think the capacity question is an interesting one in that it's hard to say, right? Because think about like an Uber style marketplace where you're matching, demand with supply at a particular place at a particular time. It's very similar in appraisal, right? Where you have this property that you need to get a third party person to and coordinate on. And, we have a very fragmented industry. Even the largest players don't have, a majority of the market share, right? So it's difficult to say whether that whole logistics coordination is as efficient as possible, right? If there was one giant Uber style player, is the 40 some thousand appraisers that we have today sufficient? Maybe, right? It's going to be a long time till any of that happens, though. And so until we get to that point, there's clearly a capacity problem. Like, what other area of technology do you know that has gotten worse in the last 10 years? You know what I mean? So from an output standpoint. And so what we think the answer to that is, and what was alluded to by not just us, you guys and others on the call, is like, how do we increase that supply of the people who can actually go fulfill these transactions or some part of the transactions? And I stole your metaphor, Jeff, that I think I actually heard on this podcast, of the whole surgeon, thing.
Yeah.
And so, my point during the RFI was, the difficult part is that the ultimate people who are establishing these standards are the people who are kind of the final underwriters, which is, in this case, is like the GSEs, right? The FHFA, the GSEs. And so until they say, this is what inspection or the quality of data, or this is the result we're looking for, it's hard to determine what that can be, right? So we need them to kind of tell us, okay, this is what we're looking for. All right, now that we know that, now we can start experimenting and say, okay, well, let's try it with this workforce and see if they can hit the mark, and if they can, then, they're approved, right? So the metaphor that I use was like passing a driver's test. And so the problem is we don't have the guidelines of this is what the driver's test is for completing inspections yet. And so I think hopefully that's what happens soon. And then once we have that, then we can bring in more supply into the industry, improve this, the turn times, logistics, and kind of make it better for everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the subject of non-appraisers being involved in property data collection, you'll often hear a lot of hysteria about, what type of people will be allowed to do property data collection. And I'm sure you've heard this fake metaphor too, Brian, because I know Kenon and I have heard it a bunch of times, is they're just going to let Uber drivers inspect properties. I've heard that like 50 times, I swear. And I think, to your point, it is highly unlikely that random Uber drivers will soon be inspecting properties. That probably doesn't align to what the driver's test qualifications would require. But as long as we have a sense for what the driver's test requires, both you and us feel like we're pretty confident there's people out there who can pass those test conditions. So as you guys think about, modernization and what the future looks like, do you see that hybrid model being accepted by the appraiser community, or is there still resistance?
I mean, I think it's going to be forced, like if that's what the industry, obviously there needs to be cooperation for it to work well. Right. But, it's funny, the industry has kind of like a prisoner's dilemma, if you're familiar with that whole thing, where, people can either cooperate and like stay strong, or eventually some people cave, which makes other people have to cave and all that sort of stuff. Right. So you see, posts all the time in like appraisers forums and things like that about, oh, if we just stop accepting orders at this fee, then we can like raise up the fees for the industry. And it never really works out, right? Because that kind of coordination is very, very difficult, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I think Kenon alluded to, that you guys have seen and that, is inevitable, is that some people do prefer doing desktop appraisals. Like if you can make equivalent amount of money or even more and have an easier time doing that, then, that's a no-brainer, right? So I think as more and more people adopt it, it'll start kind of getting the snowball effect, especially as hybrids end up having better SLAs than full appraisals, right? So I think that there'll definitely be some pushback in the beginning. And then, over time, I think there'll be more and more acceptance if they can nail the inspection part, right? Like if that part ends up completely blowing up, then I think there could be a significant amount of pushback. Similar thing for one of the things is, figuring out all the liability. Right. They need to make sure that the proper accountability is in place to make it so that appraisers are comfortable and clear in terms of, them feeling good about taking on these types of transactions and stuff. So I think it'll take some time, but I'm very optimistic about it.
Yeah, we are too. And I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about your customers and how you work with lenders, the other side of the coin. Right now, with the record volume going on and the the immense focus on just keeping up with production, I would imagine you're running into a lot of lenders that are saying, we don't have the time to worry about introducing new technology or doing something different here. Um, we'll get to that, but it's kind of like this catch-22. It's like, if you're too busy to invest, then when you know when you're in downtimes, you don't have the money to do it. Like, when are you going to update your approach when it comes to logistics and streamlining? So how do you help lenders, I guess, tackle the doing something different, with technology, especially if they already have legacy systems that they're dealing with too, like the loan origination system?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. There's a few things. First is, this is not as big of a deal as like an LOS or POS rip out, right? The appraisal, although very complex, is not like as massive of a project to take on as something like that. And we actually implement most of our customers in like sub 100 days. And mainly that's because we have fostered great partnerships with the key loan origination systems out there. And so it's relatively straightforward to do that rip and replace with some of these legacy technologies. And so for sure, probably in like April, when things were like the most unprecedented time, tons of uncertainty, ridiculous amount of volume, we for sure got people saying, don't talk to me right now. I don't care what, if you could turn water to wine, just get it, like, go away from me. But we saw that also. I think people were a little shell shocked in terms of realizing how weak their processes were, right? When you get stress tests like that, it unveils a lot of holes in processes, right? So people came out of that realizing, oh my God, we need to make our appraisal process better, because it was significantly delaying pipeline and things like that. So the second half of 2020, we signed the most deals we've ever signed. And Kevin Perenio, who is chief lending officer, one of our customers, PRMG, he made a great point on one of his LinkedIn videos that he put out, which is the cycle has been interesting because most lenders are, they gear up for the big summer, spring, and then they taper down in terms of capacity, and then they have to ramp back up. What happened this year is that lenders are ramped up already, even through the fall and the winter, right? So we're going into that heavy period and they're already ready to go ramped up with staff. So they're actually, right now is a key time to be doing technology initiatives. Then people are actually kind of available to do that because they've been weathering the storm. So so I think that, yeah, it's just on you as a vendor to make it easy enough to implement, and then otherwise it's just an excuse from the lender standpoint.
So yeah, to close us out, we ask a lot of our guests this question. What do you see as the biggest trends coming in the future here? Put on your prognostication hat. What does the next 1 to 2 years in appraisal look like?
I think it basically a lot of it hinges on kind of the results from this RFI, right? If they end up coming back towards the latter half of this year with clear guidelines, I think we're gonna see an explosion. Kenon and I were just joking before this. The new hot thing right now is like e-closing, right? Like everyone jumped on that during COVID, remote online notarization, all that. If the RFI comes back positive and we get some clear guidance on that, I think there's gonna be a similar boom in appraisal like that, where everyone is just, like it's do or die, like if you don't, then you're gonna fall behind, sort of thing. So if that comes back, then I think there's going to be a serious rush for hybrid appraisals, alternative products, inspections, all that sort of stuff. If it doesn't, I think it's going to be very similar in terms of how do you continue to make appraisal 1.0 better, review underwriting improvements, logistics improvements, things like that. So that's the unfortunate part about us, is that we are beholden to our industry gatekeepers a little bit, and so we can continue to innovate within our box, but until they expand that, you guys have done a great job in terms of helping to push that boundary, right? But I'm sure you guys have had to kind of spend more time exploring it and doing that. Like, you guys kind of had to eat the time, you know what I mean? And I'm sure you'll be well prepared for when things go, but that's kind of the problem with them not giving clear guidance. So, hats off to you guys. Appreciate you, helping lead the way on some of that stuff. And same thing for us, right? Like, anytime you're a big company dedicating product roadmap to pushing the bounds of innovation, there's a risk that it might not work. You know, so yeah, I mean, it's exciting time, and I think our investments will pay off soon.
Yeah, we hope you're right. But to your point, skating to where the puck is going rather than where the puck is, to overuse or to use an overused business phrase, is key. And there is risk to that, though. And knowing that you might skate towards where you think the puck is going, and then the puck doesn't go there, and you fall flat out of your face. That's part of the deal. So good to have another kindred spirit on the rink. Ooh, did you hear that?
There you go.
That's not bad.
I wrapped that up pretty good.
Really, Brian, you just gave Jeff like enough positive reinforcement to keep going and feel okay.
Keep doing good metaphors.
Yeah.
Well, Brian,
Nice.
It was awesome to have you on the podcast, and we wish you the best of luck with everything Reggora's got going on.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. You as well. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks so much.